This episode is about mentorship and finding your path in the safety profession. This episode is for students, early career professionals, and anyone working in health, safety, or occupational hygiene who's trying to figure out where they fit, how to grow, and who they can learn from along the way. Joining me in this episode is Dave Keenan, an instructor at NAIT who has spent many years working in the occupational hygiene field before moving into education. Like a lot of people in safety, he didn't set out to work in this profession. He stumbled into it, discovered the variety of work, and ended up falling in love with it. In this conversation, we talk about how we got started in safety, the mentors who shaped our careers, and how those experiences influence the kind of mentor we want to be today. We also get into the realities facing new professionals right now. We wrap up with an honest discussion about confidence, both overconfidence and underconfidence, and why finding the right balance matters. Let's get into it.
I think that there's a lot of wisdom that we have to give to them, and we want them to succeed. And so I pour my life into helping them try to succeed.
I find a lot of students nowadays are really rushing to get to the end. They really want that end result, and they're pushing towards, I got to get my CIH or my ROH designation. I got to do this. And then when you actually look at the breadth of their experience, or, you meet them a few years later after they get their designation, you're like, you learned how to study for that exam. I'm not quite sure you've learned how to truly be an industrial hygienist.
Unfortunately, AI is not the solution. And you talked about some students and people wanting immediate answers. I think we have a society which wants immediate gratification. And I tell my students is that the learning is in the struggle.
So what excites you about this next generation of safety professionals?
Well, artificial intelligence is part of that equation.
What about gaps? What do you think there are gaps that the new professionals are facing? I know we've talked a little bit about that in a hurry, but what else do you think we're looking at there? All right, Dave, thanks very much for being here today. I appreciate you taking the time to come down and share some stories with us. Why don't we start with you sharing some stories about what got you into the industry and where you're at right now?
So my profession is an occupational hygienist. I've been doing that for about 45 years. I graduated in 79 from Lambton College in Sarnia in the Industrial Hygiene Technology program. And from there, I went to Dow Chemical in Fort Saskatchewan. So it was a cross-the-country tour for me. And from 79 to about 2015 is when I was there for a long-term employee. And then retired in 2015, went back to Dow a number of times to help out. And then lately I've been working as a contractor for ME Global, which is a company out in Fort Saskatchewan also too, and most recently working at NAIT as an occupational hygiene instructor for part of the OHS program down there.
So what first got you interested in industrial hygiene?
I really had a curiosity about the body. I was a runner back in school and wanted to know how I could maybe get better at it. And so I had this kind of a tendency towards learning more about biology. My marks weren't that great, so I went to Lambton College and took the chemical engineering technology course down there. But they had one course that was offered, which I'd have to take next year because way back when we had grade 13 back then, they had this one called Industrial Hygiene Technology. That sounded more what I really wanted to do. So fortunately, I failed my phys chem course, and which meant I had to spend the next year at school. And I thought, well, I might as well go for it and take this industrial hygiene technology course. And it was the best thing ever. Out of failure came success, really. And I've just embraced it ever since. I find it just fascinating. Even today, after, decades of being in the field, it's never old. It's something new coming out every day in the field. So I really enjoy that.
Yeah, it's what I love about the profession
Yeah.
is every day it's something different.
Dynamic.
Especially as a consultant. Like,
Yeah.
you know, one week I'm doing an indoor air quality at a hospital. The next week I'm at a manufacturing plant collecting a worker exposure. The next week I'm on a construction site doing noise.
Yeah.
And vary from retail to hospitality to transportation. Like, you're almost in every industry as a consultant. And, you know, I fell into it, actually. Didn't know what I wanted to do after university.
Okay.
And there was this NAIT HSE diploma program offered by the ESSA, the Environmental Services Association of Alberta.
Okay, yeah.
And I basically, hey, they're going to pay me to go to NAIT. I've got this interest in environment.
Yeah.
And then after my first work semester of collecting water samples at -20, I was like, I'm never doing environmental again.
Yeah.
And there was a sub safety hygiene component with it.
Okay.
And so I was like, well, let's try that side of it out instead of the environmental side. And ended up working for a consulting company, doing mostly asbestos, but got into some hygiene and some other stuff as I grew with experience over years, and just fell in love with it. Like, just the variety, not having to do, like, again, on the safety side, I couldn't imagine building a safety manual or reviewing a safety manual every day, or like just that monotony would really bother me. So I got lucky. I tripped into it. It was very, I guess, fortuitous for myself, because it's turned into a passion that I'm grateful to have found. And it's a great group of people too.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
You know, we meet all sorts of different industrial hygienists with different backgrounds that have so many different experiences and life stories to share, that makes it really great to be part of that community.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Like you said, like, you work in some areas that are so totally different than others. Like, you could be at the oil sands, you could be in a hospital, you could be at an office. You know, it's just any occupation has a health hazard component with it.
Yeah.
You know, any. So it's so interesting that way.
Yeah. It's really cool to do that. So what pulled you into teaching? What drew you to go start teaching at NAIT?
Well, actually, I taught at U of A for about 20 years, part of their OHS program down there. One of my colleagues was teaching there, and he was ready to, give it up, and he asked if I would consider doing that. And I said, well, why not? I get certification maintenance points for it, which is wonderful to get that. But I've always had this passion for coaching, teaching, being a parent. You have to hopefully raise up your kids. But I'm also an athletics coach also too, so track and field kind of stuff. And so I love that moments where, I can do it, or no, I can't do it, and all of a sudden they can get it. I love to see that growth in students and athletes. So I just love from, especially as I age, I see the younger generation coming up, and I think that there's a lot of wisdom that we have to give to them, and we want them to succeed. And so I pour my life into helping them try to succeed. I have a basic motto, for my students or athletes. If you bust your buns for me, I'll do the same thing for you. And that's worked very well for both parties.
It's a great attitude to have too. Like, I've had a lot of coaches in my life. I've played some sports, and I've been mentored by a lot of great people. And I find most of the great mentors have that attitude. If you're going to work hard for me, I'm going to work hard for you. And you get out what you put in.
Yeah, exactly.
Is really the saying, right? So if you're really interested in learning what I have to teach, you're going to put the effort in so that it's worth my while to put the effort in to pass that on. And it's I remember one of my first mentors, wrote my first indoor air quality proposal. The client signed off on it, and I came rushing into his office. I was so proud of this $1,600 indoor air quality proposal I won. And he just looks up from his desk and he's like, "Did you get paid on Friday?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "So I think we're even." And I was just like, all right, I'm not like,
I understand.
I get it, but not what I was hoping to get as a reaction. You know, I was so proud of the work I'd done and the proposal and bringing in my first client and all that work. And I got such a different reaction than I thought. He thought, you know, especially at the time, I was, you know, they were my mentor at the office, and I was hoping that there would be a little more of a pat on the back. I think we're even. You got paid on Friday. It's like, that wasn't what I meant by bringing this in. And so
bring it down.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And even I find today, like, mentoring today is a lot different than in my generation. Like when I was growing up in the industry, where it was more of a, do this, follow these steps. If I can teach you how to do this, then I can teach you how to do this. There was no rushing to the end. And I find a lot of students nowadays are really rushing to get to the end. They really want that end result, and they're pushing towards, you know, well, I got to get my CIH or my ROH designation. I got to do this. And then when you actually look at the breadth of their experience, or, you know, you meet them a few years later after they get their designation, you're like, You learned how to study for that exam. I'm not quite sure you've learned how to truly be an industrial hygienist. I was probably, like, I think I've only had my designation for about 10 years now, coming up on 10 years. I'm 30 years in the industry, almost 30 years in the industry, and I was too afraid to write the exam for the first 10 years of my career, going, I don't think I know enough. I don't think I know enough. I got to learn more. I got to mentor more. And what about you? Were any early career mentorship that you've got to share?
Being at Dow for such a long time, I had a lot of phenomenal occupational hygienists in my environment. We had a number of hygienists at Dow. Fort Saskatchewan, with the downsizing, I ended up being the only one left there, unfortunately. But in the meantime, I had my boss was just phenomenal at mentoring, showing where I should put my efforts in, what would get the best results for the company and for me to progress as a hygienist. So I really appreciate that. We had a global network of hygienists, and we would travel to different locations and just have meetings and just learn from each other, different expertise center meetings, and that was really, really good, because we would meet on a monthly basis virtually to talk about things that were going on in the company or things that were maybe going on our individual sites, so we could bounce ideas back and forth. So I really did appreciate having a very strong mentorship from occupational hygienists. Many and most people don't have that opportunity, because especially with companies these days downsizing so much, if there is a hygienist to talk to, you're pretty fortunate. Mostly, I think the hygiene mentoring that's going to happen these days is within your social circles now. That's why it's so important to be networking with other hygienists around your area. Like you think of, the AIHA in Alberta and the AHSBS, being able to mentor through that way and just bounce ideas off is so important to grow and make the right decisions on some things too, because we don't know all the answers. We need to bounce things off, and unfortunately, AI is not the solution. And you talked about some students and people wanting immediate answers. I think we have a very a society which wants immediate gratification. And I tell my students is that the learning is in the struggle. And I have caught a number of students using AI to do assignments, whatever, that was not appropriate. They give the AI, I find more often than not, giving the wrong answers. Without a doubt, and so I've had them give me the wrong answers on an essay. It looks really really well done, like that. Boy, this guy really knows what he's talking about, and then until it says it's referring to U.S. legislation instead of the Alberta legislation, whatever. So I think that people want the answers right away because they can now. And that's that there is no struggle, it's just basically cut and paste into stuff now, whereas they haven't really done the research. Or if they did the research on AI to prove that was the right answer, that's fine. But most of them are just using the AI just to to get the answer, submit it, and I'm done with it. And I really didn't learn anything from that because, cutting and pasting does not teach you a thing.
Yeah. Going to school nowadays is a lot different than when I was going to school.
Totally.
Like we didn't have, the internet was, I'm going to school, 94 is my first year of post-secondary. Well, that's the thing. It's first generation, out in 90, 93, 94. It's just around, and it would allow me to make sure the library had the book I was looking for so then I could go sign out the book so I could go do my assignment. You couldn't pump whole assignments into the book. And so when I was going to university, it was the assignments weren't about, yes, there's a technical component to every assignment that you get, but it's more about, can you research it? Can you pull information from a valid source?
Yes.
And then how do you know it's a valid source?
Exactly.
And you would always get, the trick questions from your instructors about the, hey, if you use this method, is that valid? Well, okay, let's read the method. Let's follow it through. And,
prove it.
Yeah. And the problem with AI and what I've noticed with AI over this evolution is that even in the last year is when I would use AI to help me do some research, I would ask AI to cite its sources.
Okay.
And it would go, I pulled this from EPA, or I pulled this from NIOSH, or I pulled this from wherever, and here, and then I could go click through and I could read those sources and verify it had gotten everything right. Now AI, when you ask it to cite its sources, it's citing itself. And you're like, well, wait a minute. Did you actually pull information, or is this learned information from the millions of users that have been pumping stuff into you?
Yeah.
And now you're just, is it accurate? Like 2 years ago when AI first came out and ChatGPT first came out, you heard the rumor about, they taught it to 2 + 2 = 5. And it would go, no, it's 4. And they would, no, you're wrong, it's 5. And after half an hour, go, okay, it's 5.
No.
And then you can't get that out of it now.
Yeah.
The AI goes 2 + 2 = 5. And every time you ask it, it tells you 5. And it's a wrong answer. And we're not teaching students to critically think anymore. We're teaching to memorize and regurgitate, which is why I think they feel a little emboldened to use AI to get their answers, because they can sit there and say, well, look, you just want me to memorize and regurgitate, then here's the regurgitation. Let me get through this program because I need to get out into the real world. And so and in my opinion, it goes back to elementary school. Like my daughter has found the loopholes in getting good answers depending on her instructor or her teacher, because this is what they want to hear. Okay, so I'll tell them what they want to hear. I get my 90%. I can move on, even though I might have a different opinion. It's not what the teacher wants to hear. So, she's learning where to pull and where to cite her resources from to make sure she gets the right answer. But it's memorize and regurgitate. It's multiple choice exams. It's no more short answer, no more written. Which is too bad, because that's the critical thinking that, as an industrial hygienist, is probably the most important thing we bring to the table.
Very much.
Because it isn't 1 + 1 = 2. It's 1 + 1 = 2, but then all of a sudden you've got to square root it because you've got a different chemical on site, or you've got another component that's throwing a weird thing into the mix. Natasha and I were talking about a project this week where we have to go out and do metal fluid monitoring. Working fluid. What's the proper?
Fluid, metal working.
MWF.
Right.
Anyways, metal working fluid.
Not quite, but we're close.
Something there. But they had 2 different fluids mixed in the same batch. But we have to take a raw bulk sample from the raw fluid, send that to the lab with our air sample so it knows what it's the lab can know what it's looking for. Well, if we hadn't had that conversation with the lab, we wouldn't have known that. And we would have just, okay, I can order MWF samples from Gallison, send them in, send them back, and they'll tell me, here's what they found. But that's not accurate to the client's situation or need. And so again, that critical thinking of going, wait a minute, there's something a little off here. Let's have a conversation with the lab. Let's have a conversation with the client and get them, so you get them accurate results. Yeah. Because again, that's what we need to do in our industry, right? Is we need to understand that. Yeah. We need to be as accurate and precise as possible. And it can be difficult. Yeah, for sure. Can be very difficult.
Yeah. And it's mineral fluids.
That's what it is. Yes. Mineral. That's what it is. So what excites you about this next generation of safety professionals?
Well, artificial intelligence is part of that equation too, that they know how to use it way better than I do. I've seen some of the stuff that they've done with it, and it's quite exciting. Their knowledge of, the different capabilities of AI and different programs that I've never heard of before. We actually had one student that automated the use of an indoor air quality sampler. So he somehow, I don't even know the technology how to do it, but basically made it 3D and showed how to assemble the thing together, and it was quite exciting to see that kind of stuff. They have so much more exposure to stuff that I never had before, especially with the internet, being able to research stuff a lot more. There are also so many more things out there that they have access to that we never had access to, like even the equipment that's being utilized on the market these days. Like, we have nanoparticle samplers. We have real-time analyzers that were never available before. So the students these days have a different mindset than we did. I just hope that they really do put in the work into getting there where they want to go to, not trying to shortcut it, kind of thing.
Yeah, no, and it's a conversation we've had internally here is all this fear about, AI is going to replace you, and I'm like, no, AI should make us a better professional if we use the tool correctly. Yes, and it's not gonna make us obsolete, but it's going to allow us to be a little more professional. It's going to allow us to maybe do a little bit of research. It acts, and I use it. I've used it multiple times as more of a brainstorming session. Hey, ChatGPT, and I just turn it on voice mode, and I just start talking to it like it's you. Okay. And just say, here's the situation. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm looking for my blind spots. Yeah. What have I missed? What questions should I ask? What should be my follow-up? And go back and forth with it for 15 minutes. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, I do have some blind spots here. I have a little more research I need to do. I got a few more questions I got to ask the client. And it works as a great tool from that perspective. It's not going to replace me because, it needs to be prompted in some way, shape, or form with...
Yeah, you do the critical thinking, not it.
Right,
really.
But you allow it to help you identify where those blind spots are. And so I think... a lot of the next generation, they're bringing that to the table with what they're doing. They know how to interact with ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. They are used to, I like when I started, I had a bubble generator and a stopwatch. That's how I calibrated equipment. Exactly. And then, the next year we got one in that was all built into one little thing, a bubble generator, and it had its own internal stopwatch, and it did the math for me on my flow rate. And I thought it was the greatest thing ever. And then now it's just plug into a pump and go bump, 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 and it auto counts 10. It calculates the average. It pumps it out on a printer if you want.
But that being said, though, they need to know the principles of how that bubble originally how that worked, that you do have to have a time measured between 0 and 50, whatever, but also know like the difference between a primary and a secondary calibrator, how that one that with the Defender, how it goes up and down, like how does that work? Why is it a primary versus secondary calibrator, things like that. So those are so critical to understand.
Yeah, but that technology makes it a lot
so much
quicker
easier
to calibrate equipment.
And accurate.
Yeah, and a lot more accurate than, did I press the stopwatch at the right time? Did I press the stop at the right time?
Broke.
I got to start all. Is that number 8? I got to start all over again. I'm going to get my 10 flows. And so, it's a lot different. And that they're bringing with them just that knowledge of how this equipment has evolved so much in even just the last 20 years. That, they're, having access to, you can now get thermostats with IAQ sensors built in.
Totally.
And they can set them up for cheaper than what I can go in with IAQ equipment.
Totally.
And they can have full-time monitoring and just keep accurate eyes on what they're doing. They can have flow rates installed in HVAC systems that they can continually monitor. They can have, so just the access to that equipment that they have that we didn't have, that they're going to bring to the table that, we has to constantly, like, I go to the AIHA conference every year. I go to some of the technology conferences every year just to make sure I'm keeping up on the new equipment and the new stuff that I'm having to relearn how to do IAQ work because the equipment evolves.
Oh, totally.
Whereas they're not. They're learning it now. And so that's a great skill set for them to bring. And their attitudes, too, tend to be, I fell into safety and hygiene. They aren't. They're specifically going out looking for a good program. So they're vetting the NAITs, the SAITs, the U of A's, the all the different universities and college, BCIT, UBC has a program. So, and we're seeing way more programs. Like when I went to school, it was that at NAIT, or you had to do like a degree at McGill or something like that. There wasn't any real safety or hygiene that you could fall into. And so they're searching out the industry as opposed to falling into the industry like I did. Like even your story was a little, I was really interested in the human body, fell into this program, fell into my passion. And so they're seeking it out where we sort of stumbled into it, which is great because, looking at the research, just even on industrial hygienists, in the US right now, in North America, every 3 hygienists that retire, there's only 1 coming in behind to replace them. There's a huge shortage here. And so getting our hands on some of these people that are in these safety programs, that's what we do at JADA is we find a good one that wants to learn hygiene.
That has a passion for it.
And we try to convert them into a hygienist and go, okay, now that you're here, we want you to get this amount of experience. It'd be ideal if you went and got a degree so that you could supplement that. So there's opportunities through remote learning or other things to get that degree and push them towards that CIH, ROH, ROHT designations.
So the other thing about the students these days now is they have so many more that you talked about, like the multitude of instrumentation that's available. So a lot of them, they multitask a lot more than we ever could do that. They can go anywhere, and with their phone, they can measure the sound pressure levels right there, which is great. They have so many more things that are available to them, and cheaply too. Like you said, the thermostats. Like you can have indoor air quality. You can have norm being measured, the radon levels on your thermostats, or sensors that are in the house. So there's a lot more information that's being conveyed to the users of these things and the general public too, because now they know, norm, 20 years ago, that was not even a term, I don't think, or 30 years ago, it was not even a term, I don't think. So whereas you can buy, radon detectors for your home. So now people are understanding that, Health Canada has a limit for radon in their homes. So there's a lot more awareness of that kind of stuff for the public and people that have that desire to learn more about the hygiene. So in my program, I am always, as an occupational hygienist, I'm trying to steer people more towards a hygiene portion, and no disrespect meant here, but the safety people are more of a dime a dozen, whereas someone that has an interest or knowledge in the hygiene part, they are very rare. And except with so many people retiring from the profession, it's really hard to find them. And so there are. With every job, there are hygiene issues like we discussed. And so if someone has a knowledge how to measure noise or measure this or that, whatever, then they're going to be taken up as someone who's more value because they can do something unique compared to a regular safety person.
And it's it's hard to find those people because you have to have a very unique mindset.
Very much, very much.
We're a little skewed in how we see the world.
Totally.
And so, you know, I get a lot of jokes about like, you know, you're a bit of a nerd. And it's like, well, yeah, I have to be.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. I sort of have to be because I'm constantly researching.
Yeah.
Like, not all welding fume jobs are the same. There are similarities. Yes, this is the methodology and these are the number of samples, but the type of metals that they're the type of welding that they're doing, the type of metals that they're welding with, the frequency that they're doing the welding, the other tasks that they're doing on top of welding. Does the metal have a coating on it? That, like, all of that makes a difference in, well, it's not just, okay, I'm doing 21 metals here or 19 metals or 7 metals, but now I've also got to look for, well, they've got a chromium coating on these things. Now I got to add chromium into what I'm doing too. And then how are they doing these tasks during the day? And how that work flows.
Are you doing MIG, TIG, whatever kind of stuff? That makes a huge difference in the amount of crap coming off.
And so just understanding that workflow and that work process, which not a lot of people can wrap their heads. Like, it's hard to wrap your head around when you,
even for us,
because and especially if it's not your industry. Like, you know, we had a guy go, hey, we're actually making chemicals. So we're manufacturing all these different chemicals and we need an assessment done. And I'm going, okay, let's look into this. What are the raw chemicals you're working with? What are the chemicals you're producing? And he goes, well, it'll vary by week, because we have to make different batches of different things for different people. Okay, let's look at what we're doing by week, by month, whatever it might be. And then you're going, some of these, there are no methodologies for. You know, there is no way to do this. Okay, let's look at, is there one that has a methodology that I can? And are there chemicals that are similar? So we get into that control banding. And we start to talk about that, which is not new, but gaining popularity right now. More and more people are realizing, because, you know, there's 890 some odd chemicals Alberta has set OELs for. And then there's hundreds of thousands of chemicals in the world that are being used every day. Like, it's a drop in the bucket what we have access to OELs for. And so that too is becoming a shortfall. Like, it's not just the industrial hygienists like you or I that are shortfalling. It's also the research ones are becoming even more rare. Like, I couldn't do the research. That's math beyond me.
That's niche.
Yeah, very niche. But we're seeing how that we're getting less and less people that are willing to go out and be those research scientists. And I think what really sort of brought that to my attention was back around 2013, the big debate about silica in Alberta, what the OEL should be. And then you look at like AIHA, their big conference was all around silica that year. And you go and you listen to these presenters and they're going, well, I spiked 200 samples, sent them to every lab in North America, and not a single lab got the results right. Another guy's talking about, well, depending on if you use this method or this method, you can be, you know, acid washing at the wrong step. And all of a sudden, with this method, you could get a false positive, but with this method, you could get a false negative. And you're just like, well, wait a minute. How does that go? And then where Alberta and ACGIH has settled on what the OEL is, well, the limit of detection is right butted there, up against it. And so now we're going, well, you know, my conversation with clients is more, you're going to fail. So let's just wrap your head around, you're not going to get a below the limit of detection, because even if you do get a result,
10%,
even if you get below, I have to do 50% of like any action item below 50%. Well, a none detected is below 50, is still above 50% according to where the two numbers are. So I'm going to be making recommendations on my visual assessment anyway. So I've done my walkthrough. I've given you 5 things you need to change. Then bring me in to do air monitoring so we can show that they're wearing the appropriate PPE or the work rest rotation that you've built is working properly. Like, so again, we're twisting the paradigm. I'm not just going out doing sampling and from that sampling dictating the process. I'm telling you, build this process first, and we're going to confirm that the sampling, you know, does what we want it to do, did what we want. Those processes did what we wanted it to do. And you have to think like that sometimes. The hygienist is in reverse.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Totally in reverse.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I'm not going to let the sampling dictate the PPE.
Yeah.
I'm going to dictate the PPE and the process and the procedures, and then confirm with sampling that those are accurate.
It's more cost effective that way too.
Yeah, 100%. And so I think it suits new talent, like new staff or new students that are interested in this a lot better than it did in my generation, because hygiene was a bit of a spin-off. It was really unheard of unless you went and got a master's or you were in engineering or in chemical sciences or something like that. And so you really didn't know it existed back in the 90s, because there wasn't a lot of the people that were practicing it were isolated as well. They weren't connected as well with the other safety professionals or the environmental division or even operations. They would, my guys are coughing a lot. Can you come figure out why? Oh, okay. We're very reactive in the 90s, as opposed to now. It's all about being proactive. And so that really suits, I think, the next generation, is that they can come in as a hygienist. They get to interact with operations, the safety professional, the environmental people, leadership, and they have an influence on all of those people. Way more than we did when we started.
Totally.
I had to listen to a whole lot of no's before someone was willing to do that monitoring or to do that work, right?
Well, that's one thing I really appreciate about the code, though, is that it basically says that thou shalt do an exposure assessment, so and a hazard assessment. So that's part of the requirements. So leadership needs to recognize that we have to do that kind of stuff, and then look at the hierarchy controls, and so they really need to be updated on that kind of responsibilities that the employer has.
Yeah, and it's even the safety professionals don't understand that. It's like, you have and I blame it on core, because core doesn't have a hygiene component.
No,
it's all safety paperwork. Okay, but there's paperwork involved with hygiene. Why isn't there a hygiene component? Why didn't you? Do you have worker exposure at your work site, and did you do monitoring? Two simple questions that could expand core and put a lot more effort on the safety professional to go, hey, we got to take hygiene a little bit more seriously. And the new safety professionals, the good ones, are recognizing what they don't know, calling the professional, calling the industrial hygienist, and saying, I've got this problem. I've got these things. I'd like to do this. I'm thinking about this. What's your process? Where the old school safety professional is a little more hesitant to bring in the hygienist because, we never really needed them before. I can figure this out for you guys. And, pumps it into Google and goes, Google says we shouldn't really worry about it unless we're over 82 decibels. And I walked around.
But that's American standard, by the way.
Yeah, right. But walked around with my phone and went, we're floating around 78, not realizing, are you though? Because the phone isn't perfect.
Yeah,
it's got a plus minus of 25%, and when you are looking at how noise curves, 10% is a big win. Like that's 4 decibels. Very easily that you could be overexposed or underexposed to.
Yeah, it would say it's only 88, it's only 3 dB more, but that's actually twice as much sound pressure. So you have to understand the concept of how noise works. Yeah.
And so a lot of them really miss that and miss and like the other I find too is they're looking for fancy solutions where the new generation is going, we got a noise problem here. I got cardboard and duct tape and I can create a noise barrier. Yeah. We don't need a fancy solution to solve this problem. Yeah. What do you mean? Like the guy from this company is trying to sell me noise baffles and install this and install that and build this big shed around it. And you're coming in with cardboard and duct tape? Yeah. It's like, and I can drop it by 3 decibels by doing that.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't need 30 decibels.
Yeah. And so the new generation is very much looking for those simpler answers where a lot of us have been taught to feel like it's a little more complicated than that. And so again, for us, keeping up on that learning curve, but for them, it's what they're being taught by us. Yeah. Right? Here's what I've learned over 30 years. You can take that away today and not go through what I went through, right?
Save you some trouble.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's a pretty big thing. What about gaps? What do you think there are gaps that the new professionals are facing? I know we've talked a little bit about that in a hurry. But what else do you think we're looking at there?
I think a lot of the gaps from the occupational hygiene viewpoint is that we've expected our students become more generalists. So I don't think they really have the depth of knowledge for a lot of stuff. So they can do kind of surface level things very well, but when you get into do some deep drilling into some of the things, they don't really understand a lot of those concepts. So, but unfortunately, that's what employers expect these days. I'm just going to hire one person to do all my environment, health, safety, process safety, environmental monitoring or reporting. Like they have to do so many things on their plate, and so it's asking too much of them sometimes too. So I think some of the gaps are we need to allow for specialization depending on the company itself too. Like they may have some parts that may have real requirement for some environmental stuff, some real requirements from occupational hygiene stuff, but maybe not so much for safety component of that. So maybe try and hire towards that area. But yes, I think that the generalization is or non-specificity of the knowledge is hurting a lot of companies.
Yeah, I would agree. And I mean, that's the opposite of when I started was
totally.
You want to be a generalist because if you're a master of one thing, that's a harder job to find.
Yeah.
It's a harder position to find.
Yeah.
And so be the generalist, be knowledgeable in all the different areas. And if you have to dig deep, you have a contact or a resource that you can call that can help you dig deep on, a noise problem or an environmental problem. And to me, that's what I think is lacking with the upcoming generation is that they don't build relationships like we did.
Oh, yeah.
And you're seeing that with, you mentioned AIHA Alberta. It's hard to drive younger membership.
Yeah.
And because they feel, well, if I need an answer, I can Google it. I don't need to call a Dave or a Brent or a Jason or whoever to get answers because I can just put it into the Google machine or the AI machine and get what I need. And so, and then with that too, with the disconnect of technology, they aren't, we would get an assignment and we wouldn't have to meet at the library because we'd have to pull books off the resource and we would sit at a table together and talk about what we were doing, write it all up, share information, share some stories. That's gone away now with how assignments are handed out, with how, they're taught to think. It's like, okay, you do section A, you do section B, you do section C, you do section D, and then I'll be the guy that brings it all together. And then all of a sudden you're like, but there's disconnects now because A, B, C, and D aren't flowing naturally if you guys have been sitting at the table talking.
Exactly.
And I'm now rushed with, I didn't do the research on A, I didn't do the research on B, I didn't do the research on C or D. And I'm now expected to bring all that together and I'm just cutting and pasting and going, I hope nobody notices.
Yeah. It's kind of like, think about the medical profession, like you have ears, nose, throat, you've got kidney specialists, whatever, but they know their stuff very well, but they don't know how sometimes they interact with each other. So same thing with any profession, like you have to know how it all mixes together.
Yeah. And that to me sort of leads to my next, which is like confidence. Some of them are really overconfident for the fact that they have never run a pump in their entire lives. Yeah.
It's a hands-on experience. It's so critical to understand that because, again, you can look at it on the internet. Like when I went to school, something simple like a gas chromatograph, okay? I didn't really understand that concept until I had to work with it day after day after day. And I think back now, that's such a simple concept to understand, but unless you actually have your hands on, you will never understand how it fully works. The other thing is that we had a bunch of holidays this year at school, so we missed a number of days. So what I had to do is I had to cancel one class because of the holiday. So what I made the other lab day is a free-for-all so that the students can come in and play with the equipment that they felt not quite as comfortable with. So we just had our final exam just last week, and the students aced it. I couldn't believe it. Really, nice to see that, because they spent all their optional time that they could have done other things, but they spent their time learning how the equipment worked intimately, and they did so well on the exam because they actually had the hands-on kind of stuff with it.
Yeah, and that hands-on, like, I'm a hands-on learner.
Yeah.
So you can tell me
most people are
20 times how to do something. I'm going to capture about 60% of that. I'm not going to learn it until I actually follow you in the field.
Exactly.
Get my hands on the equipment while you're over my shoulder telling me what to do. Step A, step B, step C. That's that. I've always been that way. I'm a tactile learner. I need to be able to do it. And I find more and more people they're not, like, my brother was not a tactile learner.
Okay.
He could read a book.
Oh, okay.
Super book smart.
Okay.
He could apply it to a degree, but that's how he learned. I would read the same book and I would get 60% of the information. And until I went out and applied it, I wouldn't fill that gap.
Yeah.
He would be at 90% before he would go and apply it. And I think more and more people are learners like I am now. And so getting them their work experience, of getting them in the field, it shakes their confidence a little bit, because they think they're here because they did a really good job in your class. And then you get them into the field and they're like, oh, wait, the room's not perfectly square.
Or did it once kind of thing. But, the point being, like, it says, like, connect the sample cassette to the pump. Okay, well, most of them will hook it up, but half of them will connect it up backwards. Unless you understand how that sample cassette is made, the support pad is on the bottom. If you flip it the wrong way, you're going to waste the analyst's time and the cost of that.
If you don't open the cassette the right way, if you don't there are some that you just pull off the little blue topper and let her go in the small hole, and there's others you got to have a full face.
Exactly.
And that's dictated by the method. And so, and then you've got tubes, you've got impingers, you've got all this different technology that they're not going to see in your class because you get this amount of time. And, like, I don't think I used an impinger until I was 7 years in the industry. I'd heard about it, I'd seen them, but I never actually had to apply one. And I remember the first job I did with an impinger, the fluid all evaporated away, and I was like, son of I got to redo all this work. What did I do wrong? Learned the hard way about using an impinger. And, a lot of those people coming out of those programs will let that shake them. And it's like, we learn from our mistakes.
Oh, totally,
and it's one of the things I share with my staff all the time is you're going to make a mistake.
And you have to.
It's going to happen. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. A mistake is going to be made. So it's how we handle that mistake. And with us, we're honest with our clients. Here's what happened. We're going to have to redo the sampling. 9 times out of 10, it's at our own cost. It wasn't our mistake. And so we redo that sampling. We talk with the client. We collected the info we needed to collect other than the sample results. So our time is a little less involved in that scenario. But if we don't admit that mistake, if we let our confidence shake us and we're afraid to admit that we make those mistakes, especially in industrial hygiene, you're going to end up with incorrect results, incorrect recommendations.
Consequences could be really severe too. That way, like if you say that really wasn't an issue when there could have been, that could be really severe.
And like you say, a lot of it is, on the asbestos side, it's mostly timed out pumps, faulted pumps, overloaded cassettes due to interference from outside of what that's going. But I harken back to 2013 when Alberta was debating silica. Well, the lab told me, no, I want you to use this methodology. We do this methodology, this methodology. I did that. We collected the results. We had a mixed batch of overloaded or elevated above OEL, some below the none detected, all that other stuff. And OHS rejected it because we should have used the other methodology. And I went, well, where does it say that in the code? It just says I have to use a NIOSH method. And this was the method so we went back to the client. We just said, look, OHS, you've been fighting with OHS since before we got involved. So this is beyond, this is a difficult officer. But look, we stand behind our work. They think we didn't use the right methodology. We're going to come back and redo the work at our own cost and redo that. And the client was stunned. Well, like your contract says you were going to use that methodology. You said you were going to do all of this.
Yeah, yeah.
And just because they disagree doesn't mean you're wrong. My lawyers read through the legislation and
nice methods.
there's two different methods. And right now the government hasn't said which one they prefer.
Asbestos they do, but not silica.
No. And so at the time he was like, I don't know, like, we'll pay you to redo it. It's not, this is, we think this is a difficult, and I was just like, no, we stand behind our work.
Yeah.
Here's what we're going to do. We redo it. And we've had awkward results in the past where we're like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And you're like,
been there, done that.
Yeah. The tech is like, okay, we got the results back. Like, there was a cloud in this room. How did this pass? It shouldn't have passed. There's just no way. And so we share it with them, and their safety professionals, we weren't expecting anything to pass.
Yeah.
So something's wrong. And we just said, okay, look, let's throw another sample onto the site.
Confirm it.
Let's confirm what we got. Let's see if we get a different result. Okay, we got a different result. Okay, we think that's more reliable. But then in the report, we talk about the two results, and we talk about like our visual of what we were seeing and what the process was. It didn't align with the results that we got. The pump may have faulted during the operation. A tube might have got pinched. Like, we just don't know.
Yeah.
And so we came back 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later, collected a different result. It came back with a number we were expecting it in the range of. And so sharing those, like, being able to not just go, well, that's what the lab gave me. We had to critically think that through. We didn't let it, like, there was no fear with myself or with Alex or with Natasha or any of our staff about going to a client and going, the result, I don't trust these results. Something isn't accurate here. And so not having, like, to be able to sort of like push down your confidence, or to have the confidence to say, okay, something went wrong. We don't know what.
We suspect something.
So we're not sure you should rely on that. We'd like to come back and do more more sampling. If we don't suspect it's our fault, hey, you got to pay the bill. But if we do suspect it's our fault, we'll do it. And even with a good client, we'll it's two samples. I can send a tech out, set them up. They can work on another report while they're out there, or they can work on your report. Like, I'm not losing time. But managing that confidence and that the staff's ability to say something's not right here. And I find the newer generation of professionals find it a lot easier to say, well, I don't know. Whereas you didn't say that when I started it. You don't say you don't know. You say, you know what? Let me do some research, or let me. I'll send you an email with the answer to your question or whatever. Like, you just never admitted you didn't know. Whereas now it's okay to say I don't know. Let me find out for you.
Exactly.
And so they have a lot easier time doing that, I think. And that's really good, because it's okay to say I don't know. Whereas I was taught the exact opposite. You never tell a client you don't know. You always have the answer. That's what they're paying for. And I'm like, are they? Because there are tricky situations, and I don't think they are. So What about you? Like, where do you see the next generation going?
Well, I really hope that a lot of the students that I'm teaching, or the next generation, does diversify into occupational hygiene, because, again, if it's uniqueness, it gives you an extra feather in your cap, to speak, that you, being unique, you are more valuable to the company. I just, with so many new technologies coming on stream right now, I think the opportunities are just endless for a lot of things that they'll be able to do that we could never even dream of doing. Like, again, even just have a noise meter on your phone is phenomenal. But you can, the phones themselves are just marvelous things. Like, you've got vibration meters on them, you have light meters on them, you've got so many things you can even put attachments onto them now that can measure radiation, whatever you want. And at essentially no cost. Like, I remember like some of the noise meters we had, $20,000. Okay, way back, back in the 90s, and they were huge monsters. Now you have that whole set of full range of occupational hygiene instrumentation on things that they're not approved, but at least it gives you an idea where you're at, kind of stuff. Or talk about even the thermostats and other home devices that can do things that we could never even before.
Yeah, and the math too. Like, there are now apps out there for the hygiene math that you don't have to. You can just go plug it in. It'll do the math for me. I don't have to be a math specialist to do some of that.
That being said, though, with my students, though, what I have them learn is the first principles. So what I have them do, if, say, we're doing a silica sample, I have them do the start time, stop time, flow rate, et cetera, all that stuff. And then I have them, the lab sends them back a number, and quite often the lab will give the finalized number in milligrams per cubic meter. But I have them calculate. The lab gave them that they sampled 28 milligrams of crystalline silica. What is the answer in milligrams per cubic meter? So they have to understand the whole process, because sometimes labs don't give the right numbers. Yeah. And so you have to have that kind of a feeling that they are reporting the right numbers. And once you have the confidence, yes, just take the number back from the lab, and that's good enough to report. But you do have to know the first principles behind calculating that. So that's why I've created a bunch of spreadsheets for my students to be able to do all that kind of stuff.
No, and that's great, because you're right. If they don't understand those principles, pumping numbers into the formula doesn't help them out.
Yeah. Just like AI, right? It's just garbage in, garbage out. Wait a minute,
did I really get the right number by pumping it into this formula? Yeah. And it's too, like, I would always throw a little footnote into my lab results with them where it was, oh, hey, but we saw breakthrough on the second half of your, what does that mean?
Yes.
And then, I didn't even notice that footnote in the, they get to question number 10 and it's like, okay, what is breakthrough, and how much breakthrough did you have, and what does that mean to your calculation now?
Yeah.
Oh, there was breakthrough? Oh, shit, that does change my calculation. And so having to do that extra thought process with them by throwing a couple little, smaller hoops to jump through really hammers home those styles and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I really do appreciate when students ask the question, why all the time. They be like a 4-year-old. Why mommy? Why daddy? Why does that work? How does it work that way? So always be inquisitive about, how things work, so you understand from first principles how things work, instead of, here's a pump, turn on, and they don't understand. Or if the pump breaks, if you're in Timbuktu, whatever, how do we repair it? If you've never taken a pump apart, you don't even know how it works. Get the confidence of taking things apart, so you understand how that works. You may be able to fix it under duress.
Do you find when you're mentoring this next generation that building trust can be a little difficult?
No, not really.
Okay.
No. I find that if someone trusts you to be a mentor for them, that's the first step, right? That they have come to you saying, I want you to be my mentor because I see something in you that I feel comfortable with. So I've mentored probably at least a half dozen people through ROHT exams, things like that, and just general hygiene kind of stuff. And no, trust is not an issue at all, because they've typically known you for a number of years, or even within a few months, if you're teaching, whatever, that they have seen how you work, how you react under stress and things like that. And if they like what they see, that it's full trust. And same way with other side too, I have to trust the mentee also too, that they're going to do the work that
they're going to be accountable.
Yeah, exactly. They have to be accountable, because again, if they don't do the work, why am I wasting my time? It's a huge investment on my part and also on their part. The more the benefit on their part to take that mentorship and run with it, because they're the one that's going to learn. I learn a little bit. I build a relationship with them and enjoy that relationship with them, but it's mostly them that's going to take more from that mentorship.
Yeah, and I found for me, trust wasn't hard, again, like you say, because I was their instructor. Then they came here for a summer student program.
Yeah.
Then they reached out to me and said, hey, would you mind mentoring in this?
Yeah.
And I'm finding now, as I'm progressing and I've got, 25, 30 years of experience, they're searching me out. It's not the other way around. I'm not just, hey, I'll be someone's mentor who's interested. It's I'm getting an email or a phone call going, hey, my name is so-and-so. I took your program 5 years ago, or I took your course 5 years ago, and I'm interested in learning more. I need some mentorship help on this or that.
Yeah.
Or I've just heard about you, and every time I talk about wanting a mentor, your name is one of the ones that comes up. And so that trust thing tends to be automatically built there because of A, that reference, or B, that experience and share.
Yeah.
I find the one thing is confidence. I find they're either overconfident or they're underconfident. And
which you have to bring back to reality, right? Like, like if they're underconfident, you have to build it up. If they're overconfident, kind of bring them back to earth.
Yeah, and I find it's harder to bring them back to earth.
Oh, totally, yeah.
But even the underconfident, it's hard to get them to recognize, like, they just don't have that self-awareness that they're doing a good job. And so getting them to recognize, you're doing okay. Don't worry about it. Quit saying thank you. Quit apologizing. You did it right. That's all that should matter. And like I say, I shared my first story of what I thought was my first big win with my mentor, and I got the old, let's bring you back down to reality. That was my generation. Again, I don't want to lose my job to Jason, so let's keep him down a little bit. Whereas, I think people like you and I have learned there's a shortage. Rising tides raise all boats here.
Yeah, huge.
We need anyone and everyone that's willing to learn, and will mentor anybody. And a lot of them too. And a little bit of the mistake I made was I was in the consulting industry while I was going from school, and probably within a couple of years of graduating, I started my own consulting business. And learned very quickly I needed 5 more years of building relationships and
good network,
and building friendships to actually have a successful consulting business. And
that's one of the problems, I think, not issues I should say now, because with the advent of COVID, that a lot of these students are a little more hesitant to create relationships, because they really haven't gone through that era of growing up. A lot of the students that I'm teaching were in high school when COVID hit, and so they don't really have that I would say comfort level with building relationships with other people. So there's a bit of that, you say the trust level. I think that's a little harder now. But, once the trust is built, it's quite solid that way. But, I think that's one of the things we're still dealing with, that fallout from COVID, of those relationships being built.
Do you think it was, so I see it as more COVID exacerbated an already existing condition that maybe technology brought around? It's a lot easier. Like, I remember, early 2000s, late 2000s, I would have an admin staff and, hey, can you call this place, do this, and just confirm that, we're going to get these results. They would send an email. They would they would hesitant to pick up the phone and have a conversation.
It's easier. It's non confrontational sometimes.
And we see now more, like, you log into the SGS Galison website and the chatbot comes up and can we direct you to a hygienist to answer your questions? It's not, you don't get to talk to somebody on the phone anymore. You have to go back and forth through chat messages or emails. And I think that exacerbates that fear of building relationships. And
totally agree.
And really hard to bring that around to saying it's okay to call the lab and ask questions. Don't be afraid.
Talk to a live person.
Talk to a live person. And they're going to help you identify your blind spots. You're going to help them identify what worked and what didn't. And so it's hard to get them to recognize it's okay to not text message or not pick up the phone and have that conversation. And so what about other lessons you've learned from your own mentors?
Well, listen to them, obviously, because they've had the experience. My boss said that, occupational hygiene has a lot of data involved in it, so you better learn the computer programs that support that. So, when the computers were first coming out, we had a program that was, even Microsoft Office didn't even exist at that point. So we used a program called Framework, which is kind of a combination of all of the Office things. And then we eventually evolved into Excel and things like that. And then when Access came out, Microsoft Access, that was a huge thing for us, and that was such a wonderful tool that came out. And now it's going to basically web-based designs of but it's evolving all the time. But just listening to mentors, they're not perfect either too. You have to try what works for you and stick with that. And your life lessons will then carry on to the people that hopefully that you do mentor also too.
Yeah.
A lot of trial and error for sure.
Oh, for sure. And, I found too that especially, and what worked for me was, okay, I've got a technical mentor. I've got a business mentor.
Totally.
Like I've got for different areas of my life, I've got different mentors.
Yeah.
And being able to share and have those conversations about, and just focus on the one area and have them be able to share back and forth about that area that I'm using them as the technical expert for has, really brings a lot of value. And so not just having one mentor, but having 2 or 3 at a time, there's value in that.
And it ebbs and flows too.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure it does. We've talked, a lot about why mentorship is important in the workplace and we talked about that communication issues that, they're afraid to build relationships and afraid. And I'm seeing a lot of that with smaller manufacturing organizations where they've got their safety professional in, they've got their 30, 40 staff, but they're isolated.
Yes.
And the boss, the operations doesn't want to spend money, doesn't want to invest a lot. And that isolation, I find as a safety professional, I see a lot of them jumping from job to job to job because of that. Yes,
which is good and bad to some extent, that you learn an awful lot more when you move positions. But the scenario described is quite suffocating, very suffocating, and you can see why there is movement sometimes from that. But that person really needs to understand that they need to network, and sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And so you have to understand, I don't understand this, so I need to find someone that can help us out with that. So it's either hiring a contractor or just consulting with someone to be able to help address the issues that you're seeing in that facility.
And it's hard for them because, they might have that technical mentor, but that technical mentor doesn't maybe have the skill set to talk to the boss in a way and to mentor them in a way to talk to the boss to get them to understand the value of this and the value of that.
Yeah.
And, I've always talked, about our staff and about organizations that we work with about how, we should have the work that you're asking us to do should have a positive effect on your culture, regardless of the results. And it should show your employees that you care.
Exactly.
It should show your employees that you're listening to their concerns. And when changes need to be made, you're adapting those changes and you're evolving as an organization. And so the world we're in, where as a hygienist or as a safety professional, where we can have those conversations about, we're not just safety, we're culture. We have a huge impact on culture, way more than I think a lot of people are willing to admit.
That we add value. In fact, we save you lots of money, visits from OH&S, things like that, what we're doing is actually saving you money in the long run.
Yeah, and just calming staff down with that recognition of they've brought in this third-party hygienist, or we have a hygienist full-time on staff that's going to work through this with you guys, and we're going to work through operations, and we're going to find a reasonable solution to solve the problem. And, that's a lot of people don't see that.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't see that.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to sell that to their boss to say, hey, by doing these little things, we're not just spending money. We're doing X, Y, and Z for your culture, for your environment, for your staff.
Yeah.
And we're bringing that level, you know, so you're going to get a 3 or 4x return on whatever it is you're investing.
Yeah, the employees feel nurtured by the employer because you're actually listening to my concerns.
Yeah. And so that's a big thing I talk a lot about when I'm mentoring younger staff is, you know, it's not just the technical. You've got to be able to sell this to the boss. You got to be able to communicate to management on the value add you're bringing to the table and what you're doing. And that's one of the things I've always been bad at is selling myself. Like, no, I undersell myself. Yeah, exactly. Right. But you have to in our industry so that they understand, hey, you're getting a 3 or 4x return on what I'm doing here. Don't think of this as an expenditure. Think of it as a value add and look at it from that perspective.
And even from the ROI perspective, that you know, if you have happier employees, that, you know, for instance, if the previous person said, well, just we're going to wear hearing protection, and that actually is, you know, when you think about the cost of that, having to have a hearing conservation program, the purchase of all the hearing protection stuff, blah, 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 it goes on and on. Whereas if you just put some type of a very simple solution and get everyone out of the hearing conservation program, you don't have to do training anymore, and you just have much happier employees if you know, say, follow hierarchy controls and do it the right way the first time.
Yeah, exactly. So when you're helping and you're mentoring this next generation of professionals, what do you do to help them sort of take ownership of their development and keep them accountable through that mentorship process?
Having a regular, if it's something specific we're doing, like say for studying for, they wanted to get a professional designation. So we have regular meetings. So we have to be meeting on, like say, every Friday or every second Friday, whatever. And we're going to go with these questions. And in the meantime, I expect you on your own time to do this and this and this. So there has to be that accountability for that. I have to see buy-in from them that they really want to do this. You know, I assume though if they come to meet for something that they already have that desire to progress in whatever area that they want to be mentored on. So the buy-in, accountability, and then the commitment also too from both parties that we'll do that. And then we, you know, regular check-ins, like where are we at? You know, the exams in, like, you know, next year in the fall, are we on track for doing that? What resources do you need for that? Do we have them all? I may suggest these things to do. And you might want to contact this person, whatever. They might help you in some areas that I may not be able to help you as much as I can. But I think that's a regular check-in with each other because you just hold them accountable to what their goals are.
No, and that's important. It's a lot too of, I've had some bad mentors that don't understand that part of the process is, you know, not just me coming with questions, but you, from that evolution of that conversation, you going, hey, you should look into this. You should look into this. You should look into this. Go do a little research on your own.
Exactly. You learn that way. Yeah. Not just me telling you.
So when you look at industry right now and industry expectations, are there things that you would love to see evolve in how we train or educate and mentor this generation?
Well, I'm really glad that we have programs like the NAIT one and other ones like the U of A that have the occupational health safety programs. I would say it broadens the base of people that are in the programs. I really like how OHS has a fairly good presence among the OHS folks, I guess, that we get routine communications from them. They're finally doing an OHS review on the Schedule 2. So things like that, you know, to keep current, I guess, on that. So I'm glad that they're doing that. You know, there's lots of information bulletins that they publish. The latest one being, or one of the latest ones being about, you know, with the new ROH and ROH2 designations, what they can and cannot do. So that's putting a lot of pressure on a lot of employers to look at their program and who do we have that can actually do this kind of stuff. And so now what they're recognizing, they have to have someone with the competency to be able to write an occupational hygiene report. So they're starting to develop in-house people to be able to do that and allow them to be trained and educated so they can actually challenge exams. I really like what AHSPS, I'll never get that acronym right, but anyways, what they're doing for the scope protection of the work. I think that I've been on that thing since early 2000s, I think, when it first started, inception. I think we're looking at title protection, but I think the way that they're going with the scope protection is a better way of doing that, of getting of that mentality that, when we talk about a competent person, it's not really so much of what your title is, but are you competent doing that? I don't really care if it's Tom, Dick, or Harry, as long as he's got the designation or some type of competency that proves that he can do that kind of thing is a way to go. Yeah. But with the ROH and ROHC designations, that really goes a long way of showing competence.
And I agree. I think there's some evolution there where those designations show they've taken the time to get the education, they've taken the time to get some of the requisite knowledge, but it's really, really easy for someone to get an ROHT or an ROH and not have that, like you say, that deeper knowledge. And
yeah.
All of a sudden they're tasked to do a noise job, and maybe it's like, well, wait a minute.
You have to practice within your competency, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of our code of ethics.
Yeah, and
very appropriately too.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's a lot of people that say, "Hey, wait a minute, you know what? I can do everything because I'm a hygienist." Exactly. And it's like, well, wait a minute, can you?
Yeah.
There's some stuff that 10 years ago, I was needing help to do it, and now I've built up the knowledge and the competency to do that type of stuff.
Totally. Yeah.
So I think I've taken up quite a bit of your time, and I think this has been a really great conversation about the next generation and where we're going with some of that mentorship. But I do have one question that I really would love to get your feedback on. Okay. If you could set the record straight on one common misunderstanding about safety, what would it be?
How about OH&S? Okay. My biggest pet peeve is that there's a lot of resources thrown towards safety and very little towards occupational hygiene. And those numbers are reflected in the statistics we see year after year from OH&S, WCB, that release the records of occupational fatalities. So when you look at the number of fatalities that have happened from, so 99% of the people think that a fatality workplace is always due to a safety incident. So someone fell off a ladder or whatever, or they had a motor vehicle accident on company time. But the number of fatalities due to workplace incidents and motor vehicles combined pales against the number of fatalities due to occupational exposure. It's NIOSH, and this is borne out by the records that we have. It's about 150% more fatalities due to exposure within Alberta, and across Canada. You look at the data; it's very, very similar to that. So, again, if you put more resources in occupational hygiene, we wouldn't see the fatalities that are happening in our current workplace. The problem is that these fatalities are hidden. In the fact that if I get silicosis, asbestosis, leukemia, whatever, the person may be 80 years old when they succumb to that, but it was because they're working with, say, asbestos in their earlier career. And some of these have long latency periods, 20, 30 years for some of them, so they don't really see that, and they're not really tracked, they're not visible to the workers. So they think, well, it's not really going to affect me. So that's what my pet peeve. Just to back that up a bit more, NIOSH predicts that there's about a 7-to-1 ratio of fatalities due to exposure compared to fatalities in the workplace. So we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg if we really did track these things properly. So if we could spend more resources on occupational hygiene, we would be able to reduce our fatalities, have a much healthier workplace, much healthier retirement for us also too, that can go home and retire without fear of developing a disease, a fatal disease from that. So that is my pet peeve, and I hope that we can address that.
Every time I taught at NAIT, my very first lesson was pulling those WCB stats and showing that
Excellent.
to them and going back 10 years. And I'm like, do you notice how it floats between 65 and 67% of all fatalities in Alberta are worker exposure related fatalities? And that, I haven't looked at the stats in the last 5 years.
They haven't changed much.
No, I would imagine they haven't.
No.
And then why is that? What's that conversation? Breaking that down. And then going, and Alberta, in 2013 said they suspect that there's over 800 silicosis deaths every year that are misdiagnosed just as cancer.
Totally. Yep.
And so, add that to the number of, deaths that we're already seeing. And so when you see those numbers and you're going, hey, what we know and is actually reported floats around 2/3, maybe that number is actually closer to 85, 90% when we see the unreported stuff because, he was a smoker. So, of course, he's got lung cancer.
Yeah.
Was it smoke?
Of what occupation are you or were you? Yeah, exactly.
Right? Those questions are only starting to be asked over the last 5-10 years.
Yeah.
Any other stories you want to share with us, Dave, before we wrap things up?
You need to have a passion, basically, for your career. I don't care if it's changing tires, whatever. They're all good jobs, okay? If you don't have a passion for what you're doing, you're basically wasting your life, I think. That passion may ebb and flow, but as long as you still have a passion for it, do it with all your heart, because that will show the workers that you are in it for their benefit. One of the tenets of occupational hygiene is the worker. You're there to protect the worker. You're employed by the company, but the company's trying to protect its assets, those being the workers. So, just be passionate about everything you do. You're studying in school, your worker protection. That gets you so much further, and it shows the workers that if you're passionate about them, they'll be more accepting of what you're trying to do for them. If you want them to wear a pump, whatever, instead of let Henry do it, kind of thing. It's they'll be, if they see that you're there for their best interest, they'll help you out also too.
Yeah, I also too that passion translate when you're teaching.
Oh, totally.
They can see you can go on for okay, wait a minute, I got to pull myself back because I could go on for 4. Yeah, exactly. We're way longer than we expected tonight just because of that passion. And it's one of the things my dad always, and my parents always said was, find what you like to do it well, everything else will follow.
Totally.
And so far, knock on wood, that's been true to my life, and I've been very lucky that way.
Yeah.
Perfect, Dave. I do appreciate you coming out tonight and
Jason.
spending some time with us, and this has been a great conversation.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.